Okay, this is the video going with quiz 7. The first three are really just from the lecture, so if you read it carefully, here are the answers. It should make sense. Just first one, it says maximize your expected value. That's sort of like maximize profits, but not exactly. The two kinds of insurance are ordinary and extraordinary, right? Sometimes called actuarial and extraordinary. And then for the next one, risk aversion first, it just means it's a definitional question. People who don't like to take risks, they play it on the safe side. And why is it relevant to decision making? It can affect both the utility assignment as well as the probability. So utilities and probabilities are not set in stone. Attitudes can affect these things. Okay, it's the last one I suspect that you guys will have some problems with. And what we have here is the beginnings of what's called decision table, and it's just getting you ready for the real problems coming up. So after you read through and tried it out, here's one way to sketch it. There are other ways, but here's one way, and it's just a sketch. So I have here on the left the course of action for Matt, and then the probabilities from the problem. So they get turned inside out. The chances of that happening, 1 out of 600. The consequences are really bad. Remember, these are mothers against, or like mad, mothers against drunk driving. When that happens, even though it's a low probability, consequences are really, really bad. So I just have a bunch of negatives here. On the flip side, if they're not turned out inside out, that'll be 509 out of 600. The chance, the utility, the benefit of that, they just go, fine, that's good, one plus. But by comparison, since they got sons and daughters, them dying obviously is far worse, far outweighed than the benefits of this technology. By contrast, you can think the Trekkies are those who are tech advocates. In today's world, if you want a more um, yeah, a more relevant and potentially dangerous scenario. The map people are the ones who are saying, warning us against technology getting out of hand. We think it's all sort of under our control, but from some very, very strong advocates of this stuff, people at the very top of the game, um, Tesla, other big name CEOs, former CEOs even in the tech industry. Some are on the tech side saying we're like the Trekkies. We think it's all gung ho and ready to go. Others are like, we've been in this industry. We're billionaires already. We're industry standards, and we think what's coming is scary as heck. If AI rises, we're going to have something that there's basically three apocalyptic scenarios that some of them are projecting when you read these world studies. One is climate change, maybe the greatest threat the human species ever faced. And unfortunately, most people are not really aware of that. That says a lot about our society. The second one is nuclear Armageddon or war or attacks, and or some kind of biological warfare or epidemic occurring. And the third is the rise of AI. And AI in particular is one that the tech people are worried about, especially those who have thought about it very carefully, saying that if this thing rises, why would they keep us around? We're probably going to go extinct, or it's going to seriously revise the species. So the mad people will be the ones looking and saying the benefits, yeah, they're there, we acknowledge that, but the negatives are far greater. The Trekkies, on the other hand, are sort of like the tech advocates, right? So the chances of this occurring, they say, by contrast, it's really low. The anti-tech guys or the tech warners are saying, no, the chances are not that low. They're low, but not that low. Whereas the tech guys say, no, it's really low. And the negative side of this, maybe AI takes over, maybe there's some bad stuff. That's not so bad. It's just a minus. By contrast, it not happening, it's far more probable, and the benefits are great. We'll have self-driving cars. People will be better ordered. There'll be more jobs, more order in society. It'll all be wonderful. So it looks great, right? But what you have here are two conflicting models based upon differing attitudes. So the expected value accordingly changes. The expected value for the first is the probability of being turned inside out times utility plus the probability of not. One will be negative plus a small positive. You still get a vast negative sum. Translating into what I was talking about, the AI people who say AI might take over, it's a catastrophic type scenario where we're talking about sort of like transitions in eras. If you look at geologic strata, right, the transition when some comet hit the Earth and caused a mass extinction event. and shifted us into a whole new geologic era. They're saying it's something like that. We're going to have a mass extinction. It's going to be catastrophic for the human species. So negative, negative, negative. By contrast, the techies say, no, when you weigh it up, the probabilities of this times that plus it ends up being a small minus plus a huge benefit. So the benefit wins out. We're going to flourish in ways we can't even begin to imagine. And there's legitimate debate here. But the point of what we're talking about in this chapter is that risk aversion, or someone who is risk prone, will tend to invest differently in these two scenarios and accordingly calculate differently. So the math doesn't give you raw numbers. What we're talking about here are the concepts and attitudes underlying the calculations. And that's where the really interesting philosophical stuff gets going. Okay, so there it is, folks, a sort of sketch of this, but we're talking about things larger than this simplified example here. More to come later on.